I've had the DJI Pocket 4 for about 6 months, and in this video, I'm gonna tell you guys everything that you guys need to know about it. Now, the Pocket 4 hasn't really changed that much from the Pocket 3 iteration. They added some buttons and some great features, but what I find most interesting and most powerful about this camera is actually something they removed. I got my hands on this camera in November of 2025, and I've had the chance to shoot a lot of different content with it. I shot the delivery of my Porsche, I shot cold weather, I shot a corporate Subaru event where I actually got to meet the James Pumphrey from Speed, so filmed him with it. I've shot family videos in Hawaii, I've filmed real estate, I filmed rollers of the Subaru Solterra at night to get a good sense of what this camera's capable of. I've filmed rollers of my Porsche during the day so that we can see how this thing really performs. And while we might be disappointed that this camera doesn't have 2 lenses on it like some of the rumors initially said, I think that some of the upgrades on this camera are some things that we are really gonna fall in love with. I mean, as you may know, the Pocket 3 camera became extremely popular and was very, very difficult to acquire. And so a lot of the features of that camera are still in this camera. So what's not to love? It's just gotten better. So what we're gonna do is talk about some things that I like about the camera, some new features, as well as things that I think DJI maybe could have introduced into this camera that I really wish they had. So how did I get this camera 6 months ago? Well, I was actually a part of a DJI beta testing program. In fact, this video isn't sponsored by DJI. They sent me the camera a long time ago, and as a part of that gift, I just had to test out the camera and give them as much feedback as I could so that when we get to this moment, the launch, we have as much information from actual users. So it was really cool to be a part of beta testing that. And just so you guys know, a lot of the footage from this video is actually gonna be from beta footage. So some of the firmware might be updated by now, and we might have some better results as we go on and they continue to improve the camera. Now, before we get any farther, I just want to say thank you to the sponsor of today's video, K&F Concept, who provides us with great camera accessories like filters for the Osmo Pocket 3 and 4. You get filters for your lenses. You've got really, really cool filters that you can now put on your phone. I've got a little mini tripod from them, and they've now sent me the electric air duster, which I'm using to keep all my camera gear clean, and I'm actually using it to keep my Porsche clean as well because I can blast the dust out, and it has a little mini vacuum feature on the back as well. So there's a ton of great accessories that you guys can look into from K&F. I've been using their products a lot, and if you're looking for filters for your Pocket 4, go check them out. I'll link them for you down below. So the DJI Pocket 4 is essentially in the same shell. We get a few extra buttons so that we can customize those buttons to our preferences. We've got an automatic zoom in button there, which we'll get to a little later. Essentially, it's the same shell, which actually I kind of like because all the filters and the accessories that I had for my Pocket 3 all still work for the Pocket 4, so I don't have to get new stuff. The DJI now has a 1-inch sensor, which is always nice. The bigger the sensor, the better it's going to be in low light. As I mentioned, it has a zoom button underneath the screen and a customizable button as well, which is good, but also semi-limiting in what you can actually customize in there. The Pocket 4 also has stiffer or stronger motors in it, which is always good, especially if you're putting this on the outside of a car to film cars, then that just means it's gonna be better for us and it's gonna be stronger and have better tracking, which is actually one of the major features of this. It was already good in the Pocket 3, and now with the Pocket 4, they've done a lot of work for car videographers like me, well, for everyone, to make these tracking features really sticky and really, really usable. You can also get a light that you can stick onto the Pocket 4, and this is great for low light situations or if you're vlogging in low light situations. I actually was surprised at how decent it was. It's not a ton of light, but again, in low light situations, it will actually make a big difference. One feature that I really love that I don't remember being in the Pocket 3 is while you're recording, you can actually swipe from the right side of the screen and then adjust your exposure compensation while you're filming. So I don't know if that was in the previous models, but for this one, if you're filming and you're not happy with how it's exposed, you can change it on the fly. And to me, that's kind of a sweet feature. Really love that addition. The tracking feature on this gimbal really is a standout feature. You can use gestures to start and stop the camera and gestures to start and stop tracking. I wonder if we move this, if it will continue tracking, but in that position. There you go. This was probably what I was most curious about because I love mounting this camera on the back of a car and getting rollers of other cars. This is essentially what blew this camera up, was the automotive world using this to get insane rollers, and it still looks good. And in fact, it's even better now than it ever was. And I mentioned at the beginning of the video that what makes this camera the most powerful is not what they added, but actually what they've taken away. And that is the letter M. Why does removing the letter M matter so much? Well, if you use the Osmo Action 6, if you use the DJI Air 3S, if you've used the Pocket 3, if you've used the Nano, a lot of the DJI products come with what's called DLOG M, which is a great log profile, but actually when you remove the M, it becomes just D-Log. And this is what they use in some of their more professional cameras, and this is what allows us to get 14 stops of dynamic range. And this is where the camera really goes from Pocket 3 to Pocket 4 semi-professional. So this is actually bringing us a lot closer to their Mavic series drones that use D-Log and have better dynamic range. And in fact, to color correct the footage, I was using the Mavic 4 Rec 709 color correction LUT. And since then, I've actually started to build some of my own LUTs for that. So if they're done, I'll link them in the description below. But if not, make sure to subscribe to the channel because they will be coming soon. So you pair 14 stops of dynamic range with D-Log with 10-bit color, and this camera really does punch above its size and weight. Which brings me to the 2x crop and the 4x crop that they're promoting. In all of my testing, I found the 2x to degrade the image quality a little bit too much to make it usable for what I would like. And the 4x zoom essentially makes that 4K into 1080p because it's just essentially cropping into the sensor. And I found the quality not to be really up to par. That might have changed as they've upgraded their firmware, and that might get better as they upgrade their firmware. A great example of this is the Osmo Action 6. The 2x feature in that camera is actually pretty slick, and I use it all the time. Now, those are different focal lengths and different sensors. If they can get that working really well on this camera, I think it'll be a nice hack, but I think having those two lenses would have been pretty nice. If I had to guess about those two lenses, you know, this is still the Osmo Pocket normal. There's room for them to add a Pro at the end of this, so maybe they'll come out with a camera later on that's a Pocket Pro that maybe is a little bit bigger and bulkier, but still has a lot of the great features that we love from this camera. And then the Air 3S that has that 24mm and a 70mm, maybe we'd be getting closer to those types of features in a bigger pocket camera. But for now, we're stuck with a zoom, and it's kind of all right. It's pretty mediocre. And since we're talking about things that maybe I wish it had, initially when I got this camera, I was really hoping that it would have full 360 rotation. There are some gimbals out there that have full 360 rotation, and that to me has always been a limitation with the Pocket 3 and still the Pocket 4, is that you really only articulate a 3/4 away around the camera, but then it locks and has a stopping point. So you have to be mindful of which way the gimbal's rotating so you don't meet the end points of the gimbal. Another feature that I had hoped it would come with is open gate, because in the Nano you get open gate, and in the Action 6 you have a full square sensor. I was hoping that for creators like us that, you know, we create for YouTube here, and we love to create shorts and reels, that you'd be able to film just one way and then be able to crop in for your vertical footage. But unfortunately, that's not the case. You still have to flick the screen down and shoot in 3K vertical, which is, I'm assuming, just cropping into the sensor and not really giving us the full potential of what technology is out there. And I did ask the engineers about this, and unfortunately they said because of the way the camera is and the sensor is, we can't do open gate. So a bit of a disappointment, and I was hoping that some of the newer technologies that DJI has been releasing would also be in the Pocket 4 to make it easier for us, but here we are. One last feature that I wish was possible with this camera is that you could actually lock the position of the gimbal. Because so often you set up a frame or you're filming yourself inside of a car and there's actually a bit of drift on the gimbal head, and so you actually can't keep that static frame, which means that you kind of have to go back to using those action cameras if you want to mount those on your car. And I get it, like if you had to lock the gimbal, that means you're really putting a lot of strain on the motors, but maybe if it's redesigned in a way that you could actually like lock the gimbals in place, and I don't know, but it'd be a really great feature, and that would bring it one step closer to being the best camera for everything, not just a gimbal camera. And so maybe in a future iteration they could introduce this, but I get that it's hard on the motors. So who do I think this camera is for? And essentially, it's still for everyone. This camera is just an iteration above the Pocket 3, but I do think that some of these features do bring it into a closer to pro level with DLOG, 14 plus stops of dynamic range, and 10-bit color on a 1-inch sensor. I don't think you're going to be disappointed with the image quality, and in fact, you're probably going to be really happy with it. Again, we were already so happy with the Pocket 3. This is a good step up, not a great step up, maybe not what we were expecting, but it really is a powerful and awesome little camera. I am going to be making more content on this camera. I'd love to teach you guys some of the best settings that I've learned, because I've screwed up some of them and I've found some of the better ones, especially if you're going to be attaching the microphones to it and mounting that on the back of the cars. There's a few things that you can learn from my mistakes, so guys, consider subscribing to the channel. You might like that video there, and I really do hope that I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.